Welcome to the If You Could See Me podcast. Thank you for joining the movement. I'm your host, Erin Mahone. I'm an author, storyteller, facilitator, and mental health professional. I like to talk about big things, ask difficult questions, and challenge the ways in which we perceive ourselves, one another, and what's possible in the world. On this podcast, I speak to thinkers, makers, feelers, and folks fighting for change. You'll experience entertaining, thought-provoking conversations with people from all walks of life. I believe that mental health is health, and it goes so far beyond conversations about illness, medications, and treatment. Our mental health is essential to living our best lives, and I want to live in a world in which we talk about emotional wellness as easily and frequently as talking about the common cold. We aren't there yet, but I believe we can be. When I set out to create this thing, I had no idea what I was doing. Just that I wanted to share my story and I hoped I wasn't alone. I've discovered that so many people need to find solidarity. They need to know they aren't alone. Well, I'm here to tell you, you are not alone. We can have these difficult conversations in the light of day. We can laugh, joke, and get serious about making change. I've tried to create multiple entry points within this movement, and I hope you will take some time to check out all of our resources and consider sharing your story on our website, ifyoucouldseeme.com. There you can submit your story, find mental health resources, submit ideas or resources yourself, read the stories of other brave warriors, find out about future live events, and invite me to speak or give a workshop in your area. If you're inspired by what we're doing, I hope you'll consider helping out by visiting our Patreon page, patreon.com/ifyoucouldseeme, purchasing my book, rating and reviewing this podcast on iTunes to help people find us, or just send me a message to let me know how this project is impacting you, ways we can improve, and future podcast or blog topics. This was only an idea until amazing people like you joined me in bringing it to life. Enjoy the show. All right, here we are. Hello, friends and family. This is Erin Mahone. Welcome to the next episode of the If You Could See Me podcast. I am very excited to be here, joined today by the beautiful, lovely Shanna Kabatznik of FABWOMEN. Shanna K, welcome.
Hi. Okay, with that introduction.
That's right.
Yeah.
So we've been sitting here talking for an hour, guys. So you just are walking into the middle of an ongoing conversation because when Miss Shanna K and I get together, we just talk until, the wheels fall off,
Yes.
right?
Yes, and we're looking at the time going, okay, what?
Should we start
Should
this
we start
now? No. We'll just stay here all day and talk. So Shanna, the reason that you in particular are here, and the reason that we're talking today is because I have always struggled with what is now known to be money mindset. This is how we talk about it now. It's a thing, and I never realized that it was a thing, but as I've gotten older and I've realized this, it's become something that I've focused on in my business, in my personal life, just sort of how I think about money. And you speak on this issue and you have a background in finance and so I wanted you to come and talk to me about what is this? How do I fix it? How does the world make it better? Let's get deep and down, once upon a time. Dirty. That's right. Once upon a time, it was impolite to talk about money, and now I'm just like, hey guys, let's talk about this because it's an issue.
Well, I still think people don't like to talk.
They don't.
Money. It's still one of those topics that people just rather put to the side.
Right.
And I think it has a lot to do with the way that you were probably brought up as well. So yes, I have the background in financial background. I was a financial advisor. I've always done something with money. I was in banking, I was in lending, I was in the financial industry. And even before coming into FAB, I was working in a bank full time. And what I learned was that before I can give someone tools about, are you okay, by the way?
Yes, I'm fine. I'm sorry. I just made a weird face. My chair is moving. I'm sorry. Please continue. This is why I usually do this remotely.
Yeah.
So people can't see my weird faces.
So anyway, so what you said this was a conversation.
It is. It is a very comfortable conversation.
So what I've learned is before I could tell someone anything to do with how to save or a budget, which, oh my God, is the B word,
yes.
right? Or how to put their money in what investments or whatnot, is you have to engage them in their money mindset, which you're right, it has become a thing. I didn't even know that was a word until recently, but that is truly what happens, is what's happening in your mind. Because if I tell you to do a budget sheet and you are stressed out over it, you're never going to do it.
Right.
And then if you do it and you don't have the right mindset, you're never going to follow it.
Right.
Or I've had people that do it, but it's not accurate. It's wishful thinking.
Right.
Because they're saying, I'm not going to go out and eat. I'm not going to buy the pair of shoes. I'm not.
And then it becomes like all about,
everything I can't do.
I can't have and
Yes.
I can't do.
Yes.
And, right.
So
it's like a diet in the same way.
It's the same way, unless you embrace it in a way that you can implement it in your life. Right?
Mm-hmm.
So that's kind of how I've started strategizing with my clients, and especially women entrepreneurs. And just that's because not only do they have a household to run, but the business to run. Right. And sometimes that line gets very blurry.
Mm-hmm.
And then you add that the spouse might not necessarily see what's going on the financial part, on the positive part. Right. So I would get a woman that maybe says, well, he's not supporting me. He doesn't understand I'm working. I'm like, has he seen money coming from it?
Right.
Well, no, but I'm paying this off, or I'm doing this. I'm like, well, you have to communicate. So there's so many different levels when it comes to this topic of money. So it's taking it back, having a conversation. And you and I joked about the money therapist thing. Right. I've actually had people nickname me that, and I'm like, well, the what is it where I don't have a therapist license, so I can't.
Right. You can't call yourself
right. Yes. But that's what I've been told, because I'm helping them think about money in a different way. Right. So as we establish a conversation, as I understand where they're coming from with this money situation, what are they looking at? Why are some things holding them back? Mm-hmm. But most important, saying, okay, you're here now. Right. Whatever happened before, it's done. Right. It's over with. That whatever, however you spent it, whatever you did that was not reasonable, stop killing yourself over that, and let's move forward. Let's move forward. Right. So after I do that, and we have this conversation, and we talk about that, and figure out the right tools to do it, then I can bring them into, okay, now we got to talk about a budget. Now we got to talk about right ways of savings, things that matter to you, in order to move you forward, and then provide them with resources. Right. Because the other thing you know is you can tell someone something, you can tell them how to do it. They might even do it, but if they don't have the resources or where to go to follow up, like buy the right kind of insurance or have the right kind of bank account or whatnot, then they're going back to old habits. Right. So that's
it makes it too hard.
Yeah.
Yeah. So why are you good at this? Why do you have a good money mindset? What magical powers?
What magical powers?
Right. How does some people have it and some people don't?
Well, I think because I started right out of college in the financial industry. I was always doing something with money. I was always helping someone balance a checkbook or do that. And believe me, I don't balance my checkbook. Those are certain things that I just think they're a pain. But then there's some people that need to happen. It has to happen. That's part of the control. I think it's really just because of the industries I've been in, and because I've seen the shift when I've been helping someone. So when I was, let's say, helping someone to buy a house, when I was a lender, and giving them ideas on what we need to do in order to get you to that place, and get them there and they buy that house and they have that feeling of accomplishment, I started feeling like, okay, it was more about the empowerment.
This is powerful, right?
It was more about the empowerment of what I just did. And in that case, it was just setting up a loan, doing, that was the tools. Mm-hmm. But I didn't realize that I was helping them by saying, hey, if you want to qualify for this, we need to pay this debt off. If we want to pay this debt off, that means you have to put those credit cards away. And what happened is I realized, okay, I'm giving more than just about the loan. We're actually teaching someone, mm-hmm. and they're appreciating it, and then their life changed.
Right.
So that's kind of how it happened.
It's really interesting to me, just you saying all of that and thinking about sort of how that mirrors the conversations that I have about mental health. And I know you just looked at me in this way, like, what are you talking about?
Yes.
Well, because there are things that we don't talk about. There are questions that we don't ask in our society because we're supposed to know them, or we think we're supposed to know them, or if we're having a problem, we don't want people to know.
Right.
And it is the same, it's the same with money. It's the same with our physical wellness, our mental health, our relationships. It's just this idea that when we have the courage to stand up and say, I don't exactly know how to get from where I am to where I want to be, I need to ask for help.
Right.
And whether that's, Shanna K, financial advisor, therapist, whatever, or that's an actual mental health therapist, or that's a relationship counselor, or that's going to your spouse and saying, hey, something's not working. When we have the courage to
acknowledge,
stand up and say, we need to have a conversation. We need to bring this, whatever this shame creating thing is, out into the light and talk about it, then we can come through the other side of that.
And that's so true, because I think with the situation with, like we talked about with money, mm-hmm. there's a lot of guilt.
Yes.
That comes, and again, it goes back to when you were growing up, did your family talk about money, or was that something that they said, this is a grown-up talk, don't worry about it, it's not, which I know what they were trying to do is protect you.
Of course.
But we as parents should be involving our children, and like with my daughter and my son, well, my son's 23, so he doesn't want to talk to me about money. But when my daughter is like, is it in the budget? Or when we go somewhere and she's like, I want this, I said, good, you have money.
Right.
And she's like,
how important is it to you?
Yeah, right. Because at that moment she's like,
oh, you don't want that.
Yeah, she's like, it's not worth $7. I'm like, you're right, it's not. But you wanted me to pay
it's
for it.
It's worth my $7, but it's not worth yours.
Exactly. So it's so funny. But back to what you were saying, and I think especially with women, because we tend to be the caregivers, the multitaskers, the doing everything, to acknowledge that we've let go of a certain piece. Mm-hmm. We just basically put it to the side.
Right.
And me included,
mm-hmm.
where especially now that I'm doing full-time FAB and full-time this, is like, oh my gosh, I have to pay taxes. Let me just put it away. Let me not think about it till the day I have to.
Exactly.
Or I need to look at my expenses. We tend to do that because it's one more thing that we have to take care of.
Right. And it's often one more thing that we either have to worry about, or that is reinforcing the all those sort of negative things that we tell ourselves about ourselves. I'm not good enough, or I'm not doing enough, or I'm not, and so when you talk to people about their money, so much of our sort of society as it is set up is about, you are worth how much money you make, and your life isn't of value unless you are, making a ton of money and you have nice things and you present on the outside as a person of value. And so what do you tell people when they, get caught up in that place where they see their financial worth, or lack thereof, in certain cases, and they are tying that up into their self-worth, and they're beating themselves up?
Back to saying, actually, it's more about removing that from the equation.
Right.
Because a lot of times, and you know this from what you do, it's not about trying to engage with someone on what they think is the bad thing, is trying to remove them from that thought and moving your brain from it. Because if I can move their thoughts, so if they think, well, like when I was a financial advisor, they would say, a lot of people have this perception that they couldn't afford me.
Right.
Because you're like, I don't have $100,000. I don't have money to invest. I don't have this and that. And, you know, and I understand what you're saying, but if you teach someone, there's like, it really doesn't matter. It's how you use what you have.
Right.
Because there's plenty of stories of people that had nothing that now are billionaires, right? So it's how you treat what you have, however little or however much it is. And what's really fascinating is when I worked with high net worth clients, they thought the same thing. I mean, they what they have, it's small compared to what they think they should have. So really, it's quite interesting.
That's fascinating
to think about it. So to somebody, $100 is a lot of money. To someone, $1,000 is a lot of money. To someone, $10,000 is a lot of money.
Right.
It just, the perception is different. So it's working with someone where they're at and saying, we need to remove that from the question right now. We need to focus or remove the focus and go back to, this is where you're at. How can we get you in a better place? Right. What are some things that can be done to, and sometimes it's a hard conversation. Sometimes I've talked to women business owners and said, you know, just the way you're running the business right now is not a business. It is a hobby. You're doing it because you're loving it. And you're doing a great job and you're helping people, you're out there, but you're not making money. You have to make a decision. Do you want to keep it as a hobby, which is great if your household can afford it and your husband and or spouse is supported, that's wonderful. But if you really need it for financial gains and you really need to make money at this, then we need to start making some changes. Right. So that's kind of, I just remove that and start focusing on the positive.
And focus on the choices that can be made.
Yes,
it's not
within
about,
that.
Right, it's not about, you know, you as an individual or you're screwing up or you're, you know, and we all have that sort of internal dialogue that we, you know, that we focus on. And that's really why I wanted to talk to you about this, because I do see so many parallels. First of all, I mean, my primary focus is mental health, and obviously, so, you know, that's sort of where everything comes down on, and I see so much pain in people's lives around their finances or lack thereof, or lack of communication, or challenges within our relationships, or the worries that we have about getting from where we are to where we want to be, or feeling like we can never get there. And so being able to have these like real life conversations about money and being able to ask a professional for help, and then also being willing to accept the feedback from the professional, and being willing to say, oh, you've pointed out some things to me that, you know, maybe I am not making the best decisions.
And that is the most interesting thing of all, what you just said, because when I meet with someone, even when I was at the bank or now, and they say, well, I don't spend any money going out. I don't do this. I'm like, okay. I said,
bring me your bank statement.
Exactly.
Let's look at this. Let's
look
highlight.
At this. I think you and I had a conversation about
We have,
that.
and I have had that, my husband and I have had that conversation before, where we have held each other accountable, you know, and it's happened on both sides, where we're like, where's our money going?
Yeah.
And when we really weren't paying attention in the way that we should be, and then he's like, well, I haven't been spending any money, and I pull out the month's bank statement. I'm like, look at all of these whatevers, and then, you know, another time he does the same thing to me, and it's just like, oh, I didn't realize that I went to Starbucks so often.
Right. So it's taking, what I tell people is like, don't let money control you, you control money. So you're making the decisions, you're setting up your goals the moment you know what they are. So it's either something as simple as, okay, I know that if I have a debit card, I'm going to use it everywhere. Okay, well then start working with cash. Right. And then give yourself a budget on the cash. If you, because of business, you're out and doing lunches and coffees and all that, put that in the budget.
Yes.
Make that an item that, realistically speaking, every week you're going to be spending $30. Don't make it a, well, I can get away from it. Make it a, okay, I know I have to do this. This is part of what I'm doing in my business. So that way you're working towards finding where that money's coming from.
Right.
The moment that we try to put it away or ignore it and then just charge it or put it on a debit card, basically what you're doing is
you're postponing the inevitable.
Exactly.
I mean, eventually you have to look at it. It's this issue, you know, and maybe it's obvious to most people, but it's not obvious to me, or it hasn't always been obvious to me, the idea that money, our health, our weight, our relationships, everything is about, you know, the choices that we make and the, you know, looking at the long game and saying, where do I want to be? What do I want to happen? And how it's not about, you know, the universe has ordained me with good luck or bad luck, which sometimes is what it feels like.
Yes.
And people get stuck in that sort of victim mentality.
Yes.
It's more about, I'm making this choice and this is the consequence.
Yes.
And if I make this choice, then this will be the consequence.
And with what you're saying, that's where, like, when talking about, let's say, a budget sheet, instead of saying everything you can't do, is finding ways to put stuff that you can do.
Right.
And then also, though, here's the biggest thing, I think, and it's going back to what you said, is if you set up a goal. So for example, I had a client that was going through a divorce and wanted to buy a girly Harley Davidson. That was her thing. That's what she wanted.
Right.
And she said, one day. I said, okay, not one day. I said, do you know how much it costs? Well, I'm like, no. I want you to give me the color. I want you to give me the style. I want you to give me the price. So she did. And then I said, okay, let's look at your statements and then we found where she could put money towards this. So what started happening is she knew that in a year or year and a half, she could have it if she had a plan. So when she was giving up the Starbucks or the going out to eat or whatever it wasn't giving up, it was getting something.
Right.
So if you change your mind from, oh, I can't do Starbucks, and you put it towards, I am getting my Harley.
Right. I'm choosing not to go to Starbucks so that I can get my Harley.
So your mind is not about what I can't do, it's about what you're choosing to do. What happens is your brain starts, it works, and like it starts engaging in crazy ways. And what she started to do actually was start putting more money because she got more and more excited because she was getting closer to what she wanted. So the idea is that when you're asking someone to follow a budget or to put money away in savings or to do something, is to give them a reason why. Their reason, not your reason, not because you should have this or you should do this or you should. I need to ask my client, what's important to you? And then we find that and we're like, okay, let me get you. Why are you smiling? She's smiling, by the way, if you can't see her, but that's what she's doing.
I'm smiling because it's so simple and it's so universal. This is a concept that what you have just said is the key to world peace. Okay?
Did we just figure out?
We just figured it all out. We figured out how to fix education. We figured out how to fix mental health. We figured out how to fix all of our systems. It's not about telling somebody that they have to do something because they have to take their medicine.
Right.
It's you do something because you like what the outcome is.
Yes.
You study because you like getting a good grade because it helps you get further down the road. You use good behavior because you like what the outcome is. Your life is happier, it's more peaceful. You like eating a salad instead of a cheeseburger because in an hour, you're still going to be able to move around. In 2 weeks, you're not going to, step on the scale and feel like, you're 10 pounds heavier and be 10 pounds heavier.
Right.
The idea that what did you say? You give them their goal, not yours.
Right.
I'm thinking about that from the perspective of being a parent and
yeah.
You clean your room. Why? Because you live in my house. Or because you like having a clean space.
Yeah.
Because it feels good when you can find things. Because you're not wearing the same dirty clothes over and over because you can't find clean clothes. Any number of other things. Yes. And you know this as a parent. I know this as a parent and as an incredibly disorganized and messy person intrinsically, which we have also talked about.
No one can tell me to clean my space because they want me to.
Exactly.
I can be shamed in that moment. You can tell your child that they are a disgusting pig, but that's not going to make them feel more inclined to clean up their space,
right.
or study for a test,
right.
or take, having a person with a mental health condition to take their medication. It has to be something that they intrinsically want to do because they see the value in making the choice.
Yes.
So,
and with that, you also have to learn, like I tell people, like back to the budget is giving yourself permission,
right.
or back to the eating, or back to the exercise, or whatever it is. You don't have to be 24/7. So like on a budget,
right.
On a budget we noticed that, let's say I had someone is eating out during the week and weekend and one out, and they spend $100 a week. But then they can't afford to put money away in savings. So then I said, okay, what if instead of taking away something, let's just reduce it.
Right.
Can you do it on $50 a week? And then you have $50 a week and you make choices. If you want that special date with your husband, if you want that special meal, what if one week you have the 50, but you only spend 25, and take that 25
right.
and put it towards the 50 the next week.
Right.
And now you have 75 and start working that way.
Right.
And there's an aha moment there. We're like, I can do that because I didn't even know I was spending $100. And then it's being creative. Where do you go and take your kids and kids eat free? Or where do you do like Groupon and buy one, get one free? And it becomes something where you're taking control.
Right.
So it's no longer, I don't want to think about it, I'm just putting it to the side, whatever, as long as the bills are paid. But it's more of, I'm making conscious decisions.
I'm being proactive. I'm
yes.
not just responding when something goes wrong or feeling crappy when I don't have what I want. I'm thinking about, again, the long game. And I just laughed. And the reason that I wanted to have this conversation is because I do think that this is universal. And I do think that there are conversations that we don't have that are all related to basic human behavior. And the way that we make our choices is often so tied up in messages that we get, or in the things that we tell ourselves about who we're supposed to be and what we're supposed to be doing,
that they're not accurate.
Exactly. Yeah. But it's not just around things like money. Although money is huge because we need it to live, and it does make up so much of our, the ideas of who we are and what we're capable of in the world. But it really is everything. I mean, everything you're talking about is, what you do with your clients is what we hope our children's teachers do with them.
Yes.
And what we hope we can do as parents, and what we hope, our parents would have done with us, which oftentimes they did not.
Yes.
And so I do tend to want to take a very basic thing and turn it into a much larger conversation, because I do believe that all these things are connected. And I do think that if we can expand from these sort of siloed concepts to I'm sorry, there's somebody standing outside the door of our meeting room and I just got distracted. I think maybe he needs our room. So anyway, we're almost done anyway, but the idea that these conversations are larger than just the silos that we all put things into. And we all tend to think that, my personal life is one thing, my relationship is one thing, my religious life is one thing, my physical health is one thing, my money is one thing, and it's not. It's all together. Yeah. We are holistic beings made up of lots of different moving parts. And when we can acknowledge that the way I think about my money is the same way that I can think about my children and my health and my relationships, we can be healthier in general.
And make those decisions, but you have to have the knowledge.
Right.
And sometimes that gets the hardest step with anything, I think, is acknowledging they need help.
Right.
And reaching out to someone and saying, okay, I don't know this stuff, help me.
Right. And so that's where they can find you, and they can reach out to you and others like you for that assistance and support. So as we round up our discussion, tell our audience where they can find you. Tell us a little bit about Fab Women and then the other things that you are doing.
Well, Shanna at FABWOMEN.me is my email. So Shanna at FABWOMEN.me. They can find me, just send me an email, and that's the easiest thing. FABWOMEN.me is my website, and I'm branching out. Shanna K is branching out from Fab Women, but Fab Women is all about empowering women, as you know, because you're
I'm a member. Absolutely.
So this was just using my gift of empowering women on the financial side, on the money side, in a way that they're still fearless, authentic, and bold. And just like you said, it's interesting that you can take one piece or one concept and it becomes a piece of the bigger picture. So I'll be glad to answer any questions. Just send me an email, have a quick 10-15 minute conversation to figure out if there's something I can do and help you with, and go from there.
Awesome. Thank you so much, Shanna. And we're going to continue this conversation, and just not in this room.
Yeah, just in case. All right. Thank you.
You guys. Have a good day.